It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Renee, Andy, and Lori are all here, and we are going to dive deep on Catalina. Catalina in a nutshell. Who should use it? Who shouldn't? What to watch out for? The pitfalls of installing it. The new macOS is here, and we've got everything you need to know next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 682, recorded Tuesday, October 8th, 2019. The Freakin Beacon of Liberty. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Plex. With Plex, you can organize and stream your personal collection of movies, TV shows, music, and photos anywhere on any device. Plex is offering Twit listeners a 30-day free trial of Plex Pass, which gives you access to all the premium features. Go to plex.tv/twit and enter the offer code TWIT to start your free trial today. And by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/MacBreak. And by LastPass, a personal password manager and identity solution for businesses all in one. You only need one master password, and LastPass remembers the rest. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more. It's time for MacBreak Weekly. There is news to report. Fortunately, the MacBreak Weekly team is assembled. Andy and Nako from Boston Public Radio. Hello, Andrew. Oh, you're back home.
Hello. Yes, I'm in my emergency bunker, which is actually at home instead of at the library. So it's the things have gone bad. Oh God, he didn't even have time to leave the house today.
So nice to see you, though. We got together in Boston, and Lisa, you gave Lisa a tour of the Boston Public Library. She said, "This guy's an encyclopedia. He knows like who painted what, when, why." She was really impressed, Andy. I didn't know you had this superpower.
Well, when it comes to I spend so much time working like there, and then you see these cool things, and you start wondering, gee, what's the story about this? I always heard the story about that. And by now, are there any topics, like movies or whatever, where you have that for social reasons you have to activate a shot clock when you start talking? They said, okay, you're going to answer that question, but in 40 seconds you're going to stop talking about this unless this person gives you an active and uncontrovertible sign they would like you to continue.
Clearly, otherwise, Lisa did, because she said I wanted more. I wanted more. It was like a 2-hour tour. Incredible. I'm very jealous. I went to see my mom, and Lisa was stuck in Boston for meetings, so it was really nice that you gave her that tour. I think she got a lot out of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. I'm glad she enjoyed it. Next time, I'm glad we inflicted upon you.
I want it. Yeah. Also here, Lori Gill. She can give us a tour of the Sacramento Public Library someday.
I haven't been there for years. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I do rent digital books from the Sacramento Public Library. I just don't visit the actual physical library. It's beautiful, though. It is really nice.
Actually, I'm going to the train museum because you have the best train museum in the world there.
Love the train museum.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. Managing editor Imore when she's not writing choo-choos or singing punk songs with her band Sick Burn. Also with us from Montreal, Canada, it's Imore's Renee Ritchie. Hello, Imore's Renee Ritchie.
Hi, Leo. I'm so jealous I missed Night at the Museum with Andy and Akko. I want to come to that.
It was an afternoon, a late afternoon at the
afternoon, because we got kicked out because I forgot they close at 5. But that saved Lisa from getting the tour that goes until 9.
Hey, Renee, is that a YouTube play button behind you? Did you get a major award?
It is. I'm trying to actually work on the background between things, and it's going okay. And then I tried to hook up the camera so I could use the camera instead of the webcam, and it all broke. And I'm going to go begging to Alex Lindsay later for Yoda advice.
Well, and if you need something, let us know. We can help you out too, because you are an important part of the show. All right. I think you probably were all on macOS Catalina beta, the public beta. I was on my laptop. But our desktops got Catalina. macOS 10.15 came out yesterday. And I think today we could just spend some time touring through it. There is a lot of difference. Let's start with iTunes.
Yeah.
Gone.
What is that?
Gone.
What now?
Gone.
Yeah.
I had a caller.
Mr. Stark. Mr. Stark.
I had a caller
I don't want to go.
on the radio show saying, "What do I do now?"
It got snapped.
Well,
Apple snapped
you do it. You do it without iTunes because iTunes has gone to that land of ghosts and winds. Yeah, which comes with like the first warning that if you are still syncing stuff via iTunes, hold off in Catalina for a while until you have you've listened to shows like this and been on message boards to find out exactly how like your old iPod Touch or your older iPhone or whatever interacts with it. I've already had one person on Twitter, and actually I also had a problem doing a sync because the first thing I was checking out last night was really like what is life without iTunes going to be like, and there are going to be like major adjustments. If you are in that minority of people for whom iTunes was a useful tool, and unfortunately I am one of those people, there are going to be some major adjustments, and you might not find compatibility just right yet.
So, okay. I mean, Apple's been moving us to Wi-Fi syncing and Wi-Fi backup for a long time on iOS. But I still think the fastest way, when you get a new iPhone, the fastest way to get it set up is take the old iPhone, connect it via a USB cable to a Mac, back it up, make sure it's an encrypted backup, use a password so all your passwords get backed up, and then restore it to the new phone. And that's easily the fastest way to do it. I can still do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you just don't get to do it through iTunes anymore because iTunes is now divided out into multiple apps. It's all in Finder, which makes complete sense now that it's not, the iPhone isn't the iPod, so it's not your music device. It's your mini computer.
Yeah.
So plugging it in and having it pop up in Finder makes a lot more sense now. So and the great thing is that once you connect it, you connect your phone, your iPhone to your Mac, and then you open a Finder window, and once you click on your phone, that interface looks exactly the same as it did when it was on iTunes.
They did zero work on that.
They did zero. It's taken directly from iTunes, so you can see there's the backups button, the encrypt local backup.
Is that meant to like shame you? Like they give you a 1980s interface so that they're trying to tell you it's time to move on? I don't know.
This is from Andrew Cunningham's, Ars Technica 8,000 word article, and I notice for some reason Andrew's still using a 4S. And his battery is down at 7%.
You only did 8,000 words?
I didn't count. I have no idea. It's probably longer. So that's good. And so you can also do the updates this way. That's not changed. It's very much
exactly. I think it's good that they left that interface exactly the same. Like maybe it'll be nice for them to change eventually, but they gave us a big change as it is by moving away from iTunes and putting this interface in Finder. So if they would have changed that interface too, I think a lot of us would have been like, "What do I do?" But you get this.
Where's my carbon?
This sense of comfort. Yeah, you get a sense of comfort as soon as you click into that window and you go, oh, okay, this is good. Everything is exactly the way it should be. It's just in a different room now. It's really nice to kind of have that comfort level when you click into it. It's not scary at all.
It does make sense that music is now not in iTunes, but in music. That's a logical place to put it, and that's where you would get Apple Music. That's where your songs would show up. I presume that when I do the Finder sync, it's going to sync music the same way it did before.
There's a tab, yeah.
So that hasn't changed, and it still has the player, and all of the mini player is still there, so you haven't lost that. In fact, I was surprised. I didn't realize it was in there still, but there is still the visualizer. So if you are like trippy visuals on your Apple Macintosh screen while you're listening to music, you can still do that.
You can still rip CDs, and you can still encode stuff, just like you can code your podcast like it was 1990 still.
So you do that in music, though?
Yes.
That's in the music thing. Same thing with media sharing. So that's the one thing that's going to be a little tricky is figuring out which of these apps you're going to go to do what you want to do.
The only thing that's gone is XML.
XML's gone. What is XML?
The stuff you should be able to export it, and then, DJs would import it to do a whole bunch of fancy
Apple warned DJs not to upgrade to Catalina because you won't be able to export your playlists anymore to XML. So that'll happen eventually. It's
the XML part won't, but the functionality will return in a way that's no longer XML dependent.
so your DJ app will have to be smarter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everything will have to update to the glorious non-XML future.
Okay.
It's not a policy change where they're not allowing people access to data. It's just, they're just making it harder to access it.
Podcasts have their very own app because it is the podcast renaissance.
Could you tell it was a Catalyst app, Leo, when you looked at it? Could you tell it apart?
This is the iOS podcasts.
The iPad podcast app.
iPadOS.
Who knew? You guys knew, of course, because you're so smart. Oh my God! So they used Catalyst, which is the technology formerly known as Marzipan, the way to take iOS apps and port them so they run natively on the Mac.
UIKit for Mac.
Why rewrite podcasts? I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of taking the iTunes podcast functionality, you're going to get the iOS podcast functionality.
And the app was much more updated.
Oh yeah.
It's so indistinguishable that even the things that really bother me about the music and TV app navigation are reproduced exactly in the podcast app.
That's pretty funny. The TV app then, is that also Catalyst? Is that TV Plus?
No, that's still iTunes code. So the music and the TV app are old iTunes code. So basically they ripped the tabs out, slapped them down, and shelled them up so they'd be their own thing, and then gave them a makeover so they'd all look similar. And the podcast app and Find My are the new Catalyst apps.
Okay. So you now have TV, music, podcasts, and syncing lives in Finder, as well as your menu bar, which is
and audiobooks have gone to the Books app.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. So my Audible books or books I buy on the iTunes store now will be played through the iBooks app. That makes sense.
Apple Books now, yeah. They got rid of all the eyes. They're murdering all the eyes.
They're murdering the eyes. The eyes are dead. Long live the eyes. Can you still family sharing for TV shows is in TV shows, family sharing for music is in music. Oh, let's not forget, there's also arcade.
Yep.
Games go in arcade. Most of the iOS arcade apps are there, not all.
Yeah, I think they're trying. The ideal is for all of them, but they're not there yet.
And then, of course, you'll be able to use, this is exciting, your Xbox One controller, your PlayStation 4 controller on your Mac now, just as you do on your iPad, to play those games, or your Apple TV. So that's nice. Okay.
Renee, I'm jumping into almost review style real quick because I'm actually right now looking in the TV app. I hadn't popped into this yet. Renee, you might actually be able to address this better, but I can't seem to find a way to sign in with my current account for anything like Shudder TV, for example. I only see Try It Free, but I already have an account for Shudder. So
do you have a Shudder account in Apple TV, or do you have it separately?
Right, it's separately. So there's no way to sign in to an app on the TV app.
So here's our great pain right now.
Yeah.
It's all still broken and it's all still fiefdoms. And Apple tries as best as it can on iOS to make that seamless because the TV app will shoot you off into other apps. But on macOS, there is no Shudder Catalyst app, for example. There's no Canadian network apps. So it'll just not do anything. It'll just won't be able to play the stuff. And if you subscribe within channels, they don't give you credit for that in the app. And if you subscribe in the app, you're not subscribed within channels because they're separate systems still. So it is a whole lot of pain at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, it's very frustrating. I want to be able to, I'm down with subscribing to something that I don't already have, but for those accounts that I currently have, I would much rather just sign into it. But I can see why
even worse
right
is
now
if you're outside the US, they have all these different licensing deals. So for example, CBS All Access will think it has a show, but it's really the licensed property of CTV. So when you try to do it on the TV app, it'll just kick you to CTV and then it'll say, give me your cable login. And you'll say, I don't have cable. That's why I subscribe, moron. And it'll say, well, you can't play it. But on the Mac, it can't kick you anywhere. So you just stay there and burn. It's all fine.
And to add in, so this will work on all Macs from 2012 on, with one exception. To add insult to injury, my trash can Mac cannot be updated.
It can, but you have to hack it. Like you have to go into the forums and read the files you have to get, and sort of like what people have been doing with the cheese grater Mac Pros for years.
The power to be your best.
Oh, I'm so sorry I bought that thing. Can't tell you how sorry I am I bought that.
It's a great media server.
Yeah, except I can't put Catalina on it. My God.
As always, its best feature is as a static object. It's you put it on a shelf, you regard it.
Wonderful
It's very pretty.
doorstop. So I didn't mean to ask that. Does so many of us use a iTunes media server like on our NASs and stuff. That technology exists still, right? That's not changed.
External library, like you hold down Alt and you launch music the way you used to hold down Alt and and launch iTunes. That's all the same.
It's all the same. Can't believe the trash can Mac.
Yeah, that was
like a paper cut and they pour lemon juice on it.
Jeez. Oh, wait a minute. I can put it on the trash can Mac. It's just the if it's got metal. Oh, it's so confusing. Anyway, if you were able to get Mojave running on it, in most cases you'll be able to run Catalina on it. That's, I guess, the easiest way to say it.
And if you had to hack Mojave, you'll have to hack Catalina on.
Okay. These things happen, for crying out loud. Windows 7 runs out of steam in January. I mean, it's just these things happen. I'm not.
The biggest things are the Bluetooth, so that they can support the continuity stuff, and the GPU, so it can support Metal. And anything that has Bluetooth that's too old or GPUs that are too old, don't get the update.
Yeah. Let's see. What else is new? 32-bit apps. We got warned.
Yeah.
They warned you with Mojave.
It's like 10 years of warning.
We were warned. What happens now with a 32-bit app? It just won't start?
Yeah, it won't launch.
Does it give you a notice saying this app is too old, or just?
It will do it while you update. While you update, it'll give you a list of apps that say these apps will not work in Catalina. Do you want to stop updating? And you can choose that, or you can go ahead with it. And it's often people who are like running old versions of Adobe because they don't want the subscription service, or they're running old plugins in Logic or old plugins in something else. But again, like they announced 64-bit as a feature in OS 10 Snow Leopard. So it's been a minute.
Well, as a feature, yeah. And the thing is, it's not a trivial thing to take a 32-bit app and upgrade it to a 64-bit app, because usually if it's 32-bit, it was still like based on Carbon, and there are a lot of stuff that you really can't. You've created a really still useful and vibrant app, but it's not making enough money for you to devote that kind of investment in time. James Thompson, the guy who does PC Calc, he also has DragThing, which is a classic system extension utility, and he had to basically have the giant cardboard on stage logo of DragThing to say, well, that's it for DragThing, because explaining basically what I've just said, that it's way too much. It doesn't make enough money for me to invest the huge amount of time it's going to take to totally rewrite the app from scratch. And I would, if I have that kind of time, I want to put it into PCalc instead, and some of the other stuff I'm doing. So
or the dice.
It's not. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's
which is now available on Mac.
Yes.
Yep. Yes, that's one of the first Catalyst apps. The new iOS apps ported. Thompson's.
James has to be first.
Yeah,
he's just amazing.
First, PCalc was already on the Mac, so he didn't need to do that. But the dice, the multi-sided dice app, you can. But
I think he has like a point of pride to be on every Apple platform the first day. Like it was tvOS. I'm shipping a calculator. It's like amazing.
Yeah, I don't need it, but I got it. So there is a list at 9 to 5 Mac of Catalyst apps that you can already get. Look up Planny 3 Carrot. Micah Sargent installed Carrot right away. But there's this one little thing. If you paid for Carrot on iOS, you still have to pay for it on macOS, and it's $15 on macOS.
There's no bundling yet. So they have a process where iOS apps can just be universal binaries. You download once, it'll run on iPhone or iPad. That's up to the developer. They can also make separate ones. And the watch is the same thing. For tvOS, they have app bundles where it's not the same binary, but you can share receipts so that if you buy it for iOS, if the developer wants, you can also get the tvOS version. They don't have that system yet for Mac apps. And I don't know what the ETA is, but basically there's no way for developers to say you have the iOS app, here's the Mac app. And in some ways, some developers don't want to, because they're like, I had to make a separate app, so it's not too much to ask for you to buy that separate app. Right. But there are developers who want to, and they're not able to right now.
Jira from Atlassian, our sponsor Atlassian, Jira Cloud is available. That was actually an early adopter.
Yeah.
This is one that Micah was talking about today on iOS Today, which I really like. It's called MakePass. If you have a loyalty card, for instance, that doesn't have a iOS app, a wallet app, you can use MakePass to create a barcode, which you can add to your wallet on your phone, so it makes it easy to use your loyalty cards at places like CVS. This is a brilliant 99 cent.
Does this work for like not just loyalty cards, but tickets to concerts?
Yes. Anything with a barcode or QR code. Yeah, isn't that great? So you put it in your wallet, double tap, it's right there. You slide it up, there it is. It's done.
I like this.
Isn't that good? Yeah. 99 cents. MakePass. That's a Catalyst app.
I'm going to get that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank Micah Sargent.
I will, because I have so many times where I want to go to a concert and, they only have like this paper printout.
Annoying.
And like, I don't want to bring this giant piece of paper with me. Yeah. It's the scanning a barcode. Why can't I just use that? Exactly.
Fiery feeds. That's the newsreader I like on the Mac. On the iOS is now on the Mac too via Catalyst. That's nice. Countdowns. It tends to be kind of simple iOS style apps mostly, right? But I think, how hard is it? Has anybody done this or know?
Well, I mean, Apple said flip a switch, right? Like you check a box, it'll build it, and then you spend as much time as you possibly can making it good. I think there's like two sets of developers right now. One who've been able to do, they have iPad apps, they bring them over. There's not much to change, and then you have like really ambitious developers like the Steve Troughton-Smiths and the James Thompsons who they don't have. It's year one, it's version 1, it's 0.0, and they just don't have all the APIs or all the documentation they want. So they can't make like the higher level apps that they want to make yet. So I think they have a collection of apps that are abiding until they have everything they need.
Here's one I'd love to have, although it makes more sense on a phone than it does on a Mac. This is one Steve Troughton-Smith actually tweeted about, called Post-it app. You take a picture of real-world Post-it notes, and then you can drag them to your Mac, capture them by dragging them over, and you got them now. I think that's a good idea. Although, honestly, you should really use your phone for that since it's got a better camera. I don't even know how.
How do you have to bring your laptop with you to the refrigerator or whatever?
Point at the refrigerator. Good Notes.
Hold the iMac steady.
Good Notes, which is a great program we've recommended practically since iOS began, is now available on the Mac as well. That's I think the best thing. I use TripIt all the time. I can get TripIt now on my Mac instead of having to use the website. So that's going to be the best thing, which is these iOS apps that are kind of must-have.
There's like 3 kinds of apps that this is great for. The first is existing apps that have either been abandoned or left fallow, like the Twitter app. They can, instead of investing in keeping it up to date, they can just keep catalyzing whatever they're doing on iOS. Then there's developers who would really like to have a macOS app, but they just never had the resources and time to learn AppKit, and that's a whole other thing. And now they can leverage all the talent they have in UIKit and catalyze it and bring it over. And then there are these Electron apps that, like Slack and Skype, that just sit there wrapped up in Chromium, sucking down our battery life and destroying our performance. And I don't know if they're going to move to Catalyst, but it would make a lot of people feel real happy with those companies if they did.
Although, one of the reasons people do Electron apps is because they're portable, so it's not a hard thing to do to make Electron.
But they're already doing iPad apps.
Right.
That's the thing, is they're all doing iPad apps.
Yeah.
But and a lot of them are also doing web apps, and so there's a bunch of one of the things I've learned from using a Chromebook for the past several months is that oftentimes the web app version of something is just as good as whatever mobile app they've created for it. So it'll be interesting to see how many companies decide to embrace Catalyst rather than saying, well, if we're going to even flipping a switch, why are we even bothered to support an app that will have to go through the App Store, whereas we could support the same group of people through a web app that we never have. We can just simply push out an update whenever we want. Apple will never say, "Oh, you can't put the Taiwanese flag in the background to celebrate this thing. We're pulling your app for until hell blows over." It'll be an interesting metric to see.
Yeah, I'm a fan of. Oh shoot, what was I? I forgot what I was going to say. I was a fan of. But anyway,
life and love and beauty.
I'm a fan of life, love, and beauty. I'm a fan of PWAs, progressive web apps. This is what you were talking about. And I love to see more and more apps do that. But Apple's at least for a long time, Apple's support of progressive web apps was not first class. They have to create service workers in Safari and so forth. Yeah. But is that better than it used to be? Because I now wonder if that's a conflict. Like Apple may say, well, we really don't want to support progressive web apps for the very reasons, Andy, that developers might like them. We'd like to make sure everything goes through the store.
They didn't do it at all for a while because their thinking was we have a native platform and progressive web apps are like the last gasp of breath for companies who couldn't make a sustainable native platform. So why would we make, a subclass native platform? But then, more, I don't know what the other arguments won out and they started adding things like service agents and other stuff to WebKit starting, I think, last year.
I hope they do. For instance, our discussion forum, twit.community, that is a web app. Can be a PWA, and on an appropriate it works pretty well in Safari. You just say put that on the home screen. It does work, but I'd like to see.
Remember Web 2.0 apps with a sweet solution? How far we've come?
Yeah. That's the problem with all this stuff.
Well, one other factor here is that if Elizabeth Warren gets elected president, she really, really, really is ambitious on saying that any amount of power that any large tech company has amassed for itself needs to be distributed and made available to other companies. So if Apple decides to hold fast to that, I'm not saying they won't be able to fail to support progressive web apps very well, but at some point they might have to explain to a subcommittee, here's why we're not supporting progressive web apps. It's not to force people to use our app store. It's because we actually feel as though a native app is a much better solution for our users.
And they do support them now, but I think a lot of that attention is going to move over to subscription services because once Google and Apple have subscription services and they own the App Store, it gets way more interesting.
Yeah. So you mentioned that if you have 32-bit apps in the process of upgrading to Catalina, it will say this, Boxer needs to be updated. The other thing it does is it makes a folder. What's it called? I can't remember. Rejected trash.
Relocated
There's a security
items.
folder. Yeah.
Relocated items. What is that? Because I don't know what to do with that.
I don't know either. It's got a bunch of weirdness in it.
Isn't it?
It says. I've got it. I've got the letter open that they give you in the file with the relocated.
Oh yeah, they put
apps.
a little PDF in there to tell you what.
Yeah.
It is.
Some of your files couldn't be moved to their new location. This folder contains these files. Some of your files have been in a location that is now incompatible with macOS security settings. These files were moved to the security folder for your review. If there are any files you want to keep, you can move them to a new location as long as it's different from their location before the upgrade or migration. There you go. Yeah. The funny thing is my file, it doesn't seem to have anything in it.
Good news. Good news.
Yeah.
I had things in it. I think what's happened here, and I think you see this as you use your new Catalina Mac, is that what used to be the case that apps could access any part of the hard drive they wanted to is no longer the case. Very first thing that happened when I upgraded Catalina is it said, well, do you want Firefox to be able to access downloads? Well, yeah.
And then desktop, and then documents.
So you have to give it permission. Now, I like that idea because it really makes it harder for malware to spread because it's not natural. Not every app can access every part of your hard drive. So my guess is that there are files, there are locations in your hard drive that apps are not supposed to access. They're system file locations. And so if we leave it there, we could leave it there, but it's not going to be accessible. So let's just move it out and then let you figure out, or the app figure out what to do with them. They're actually on their desktop. That's an alias. They're actually in the shared folder. Yeah. So if you want those files, you can't just move the alias. Well, maybe you can. I don't know.
Yeah, this could be a pretty big pain in the butt. There are a couple of apps that got surprised by a rejection from Apple because they were trying to have an app that one of its natural functions would be to sync across devices with Dropbox, and now it won't let the app do that. It has to stop and ask the user to please locate the Dropbox folder for me.
I noticed
because
that.
I'm not allowed to just simply say user/Dropbox
I got that
anymore.
with Google Drive as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a pain in the butt that was.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait a month or two before I decide whether that's a huge pain in the butt. If it's like getting inoculated for a trip to the tropics, where as long as I get all that pain over with in 1 week, and I never have to keep giving permission for a word processor to save a file to a folder, that's fine. If I only have to do that once, that's fine. But if they're gonna say, if every time I sign out and sign back in again, I have to re-sandbox all my apps, that would be a bad thing.
Oh, it would be.
So the way it works, like the mechanics of it, is that anytime there's a user action, it gets a free pass. So like if you say like if the app saves the file, if you open the file, if you drag the file, if you double click on it, it'll never send up a requester. Why we're getting a lot of these right now is because when we do the upgrade, a lot of apps already have files open that are in documents or downloads or desktop. And as those apps launch for the first time, there's been no overt user action. They already had those documents open. So it's triggering those requesters, which is inelegant, but it shouldn't repeat again unless you do something that resets everything on the system.
There's gonna be a lot of this over the next few weeks, where things that had expectations about how an operating system runs are thwarted because Apple has made it more secure. There's
the hard one.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the hard one for me is that you need a higher level of both. Like Apple needs to raise their game, and developers do too, because it blocks, for example, keystroke loggers, which is great, but it's catching a lot of hotkeys that never had to worry about things like that before. Because to the new security system, their behavior is indistinguishable. But I want a hotkey to launch an app. I don't want a keylogger. And when they pop up the requester, it's not always evident to me why it's asking for that permission. So I think developers are going to have to be more verbose, and I think Apple's going to have to figure out a way to better distinguish the behavior types.
Well, and there's one more thing that I've been always worried about, and I'm still not sure how this is going to play out, but Apple now requires notarization for apps that you don't get from the App Store. Is this going to look the same as it has in the past, where if I try to open an app that I downloaded from a site, it's going to say this app is not signed, so we can't check it for malware, so no, and then you have to right-click on the app and say open, and then it'll open, and after that it'll be easy. Is that what that's going to look like?
I believe so. I think the big difference is they've taken the permission to just automatically run unsigned apps out of settings, and if you want to put it back, you have to run a terminal.
So this is Gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And they're basically saying Gatekeeper can't be turned off anymore.
Well, you can. You just need to be a higher level user to do it.
You could do it in a command line, but you can't do it from the system preference pane. So that's not such a big deal. In fact, I left it on. I think the prudent thing is to leave it on, and then reminds you when you're trying to run an app that is not through the App Store that you have to right-click it and open it, and kind of go through these extra steps, and that gives you some certainty, oh yeah, you really wanted to open that app. I don't think that's a problem. If that's all it is, I'm happy with it.
The overload for me right now is website downloads, because it remembers on a per site basis. So if I go to site A and I say download this file, the very first time I do it, it'll say, are you sure you want to download files from this site? Because it doesn't want any malware sites to download files in the background without your permission. But then I go to site B and it says, are you sure you want to download files from site B? And it's never seen site B before, so it asks. But so the first time you start going to all your most popular sites, you're going to get those, but you're going to get those every time you go to a new. It doesn't ask you twice for the same site, but it depends on how many sites you're used to downloading stuff from.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains here.
As long as there's a way that I can enforce and or inflict my own desires upon this computer that I own, I'm fine with it. So from what I understand about how these upgrades work for Gatekeeper, so long as if I find that I need to update a camera that I've had in the closet for a while, and no problem, the Olympus site has like the 2014 version of this ROM updater, but now I can't use it because I've upgraded my Mac, and because this was before the era of signed apps, Apple wants to protect me from actually upgrading my camera to the latest firmware, then I would be upset. But so long as I can find a way, even if it's via the command line, to fix it, that's fine. And it's really Apple's going to have to do a lot of education, because there are going to be a lot of really frustrated people, a lot of people who do tech support, both professionally and because they have family members and friends, are really going to have a very full inbox as people want to. When you ask, every time someone asks you the question, how do I downgrade from Catalina back back to how my Mac was working before, you really have to hold their hand and say, keep with it for a week or two. This is like breaking in a new pair of shoes. I can't remember another release of macOS that's been like, again, breaking a new pair of shoes. As soon as you got a couple of weeks in with it and things have finally settled down and you're getting as few alerts as you used to before, then decide whether this is a colossal waste of time or not, because you can't use Sidecar because you have a 2015 MacBook Pro. No, I'm not bitter. I'm just angry.
But you have to say, though, that this is Apple really trying to lock down the operating system and protect you from malware, and I think that's on balance a good thing. So, and maybe that's what you tell the relatives when they call is, yeah, your Mac is much safer. It's really locked down now, but that means when you want to do something that is potentially risky, you have to go through an extra step. I think everybody will understand that, and honestly, I think that's good. I think that makes Apple a better platform.
They're not trying to lock down the Mac after there's been this horrendous system killing malware out there. They're saying there's a simple thing that we can do that will disrupt a lot of people temporarily, but in the end, it will give us an extra layer of brick against the big bad wolf.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's not for Apple's commercial interests. You know, on the surface, you might say, oh, Apple just wants everything to go through the App Store so they get 30%. It's clearly not. You can get an app signed without going through the App Store. It really is all about protecting people, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. Let's take a little break, and we will talk more about Catalina and all the other Apple news with Lori Gill and Andy Iannacco and Renee Ritchie. Our MacBreak Weekly team is assembled. And I'm going to guess most of you use Plex. I hope everybody in our audience is using Plex. Yeah, Plex is
so good.
So all three,
Fantastic.
all four of us use Plex.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
oh yeah.
The Plex people said, "Do you think that your audiences would be interested in Plex?" I said, "If they're not listening to us, because we talk about it all the time. We love Plex. It's a media server and client system. You can run Plex on everything. I mean, not just your iPhone and your iPad and your Mac. You can run Plex, the client, on your Apple TV. You can run it on your Roku and your Fire TV. It runs everywhere." You could put the Plex server on any computer. I run it on my Synology NAS. When you've got the server, it's awesome. You make a media folder. You put your movies, your TV shows, your music, your photos all in there, and it serves it up anywhere, not just everywhere in the house over the local area network or the Wi-Fi, but all over the world on the internet. So I like to travel, but I love to have my media content go with me. I think this is so great. And it's so smart. It handles media content beautifully. Just drop in TV shows. It automatically says, oh, that's episode 3. You've got the whole season now. If you've got a movie, it will automatically add trailers, behind-the-scene features, the box art. So it looks as good as iTunes does. It's complete. You don't have to have all that stuff. It just does it for you. And then I pay, I don't know about you guys, but I pay for the Plex Pass. Actually, I bought the lifetime subscription, which is a great deal. And that gives you a lot of interesting stuff, including early access to premium features. Offline accessibility is huge because I'm on an airplane a lot. I want to be able to download my movies, shows, music, and photos and watch them offline. With Plex Pass, you can do that. My next big project is to get rid of all the TiVos and the DVR, cable DVRs, and use Plex as my DVR. All you need is the hardware, an antenna, and a tuner, and Plex can give you live broadcast TV through the Plex app, do the DVR through the Plex app. If you're a cord cutter, it's the best way to enjoy great TV without paying the cable bill. But I'm going to get an HD home run from Silicon Dust that has the cable card support, so I can keep my cable on there. And that way I get rid of all the TiVos, all the extra boxes in the house. And I can DVR anything and watch it anywhere in the house or on the road. Customized news. You don't even have to have a cable subscription to get news. Over 190 sources for national, international, and local news. 80% of U.S. markets have local news. That's awesome. Premium music, too, now, which is really cool. Custom curated playlists. Multiple users. One of the best things about Plex is you're not limited to 5 or 6 users. Everybody in the family can have their own Plex account. You could switch accounts. Makes it very simple to manage them. Parental controls too, so your kids can have their account that they don't see the stuff that they shouldn't see, only see the stuff that you want them to see. And with Plex Pass, you also get Plex Pass perks, where you get exclusive access to promos and discounts on partner products. And, of course, you get to use the new features before anybody else. And, boy, I was really happy I was a Plex Pass holder. Look how it populates that. Oh, here's your music. Let's just fill that in. That's just so sweet. I was so happy I had Plex Pass because I was able to try the new Plex interface, which is beautiful, before everybody else was. And, of course, everybody's got it now. Plex.tv/twit. Enter the code TWIT to start your free 30-day trial of Plex Pass on us. PLEX. Plex.tv/twit. Offer code TWIT to get the Plex Pass. But even if you don't get the Plex Pass, the free version of Plex does so much. Everybody should be using Plex. If you're not, hey, you just found out something really important. This is a good thing. Plex.tv/twit. We love having them as a sponsor because we've given them free ads for years. Now they pay. We still plug it all the time because it's just so great. Just love my Plex. Someday we'll talk a little bit about what you do, how you use Plex. Because what's neat about it is I love talking to Plex users because everybody has a different way. I got the idea of replacing all my TiVos from I think it was actually one of the Plexers. He was saying what he does with the recording and stuff, and I thought, oh man, that's so great. Especially now that my lifetime TiVo passes are not such a long lifetime.
Congratulations. We're adding ads to all of your recordings now. You're welcome.
That is exactly what precipitated it. And you can do all the same stuff, but I have a TiVo box on every TV. I don't even need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
As long as they're on the network. And I've got, Apple TVs everywhere. I'm done.
And the team is terrific, which is important because then you know that it's going to be around and it's going to be good.
Yes.
Support is great. I've had a HD home run on my network for the past couple of years, and that's the reason why I have like every season of Bob's Burgers for the past 2 or 3 years on my Plex. And it's like you play this episode from like 2 seasons ago, and it's all organized automatically by season, title descriptions, cast descriptions, synopsis that you didn't have to do yourself.
You didn't do it all. It's like you have an OCD media librarian working for you. All the stuff you would do, they just did it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like imagine if Apple Music listened to you. Like imagine if Hulu listened to you.
It's amazing.
And said, "You're right. Opera should be organized in a specific way. Oh, you know what? You're right. This should not be under various artists. This should be I will not take the next.
I hate that various artists one where it takes an album and splits it up into different things because the singer name is different.
Yes.
No. It's like it's Elton John, blah blah blah, and there's one song with like Sheena Easton. And oh, this must be various artists then. No, it's Elton John's picture on the thing, and it's that's an hour that we can't afford to spend. But yes, at some point, I would love to spend 3 hours talking about.
Speaking of Hulu, by the way, you can now download Hulu like you can Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Yep.
And again, as somebody who travels a lot, the ability to put my iPad. I don't even care what the airplane entertainment system is. I couldn't care less. Yes. I have an iPad Pro with every movie I ever wanted to watch on here. It's awesome. Let's see. Dark mode? Yes or no? We love it? We don't?
We acknowledge it exists.
I'm into it.
Hooray.
Do you use auto, Lori, or do you do just dark?
I do. I use auto. I love just things just naturally changing on their own. So it's kind of a fun, like, oh, it just changed. Look at that.
Sunset.
Yeah.
And the Catalina, I leave the Catalina wallpaper for the same reason, because as you watch the sun move across the island, it's really cool.
Yeah, that one's even more exciting because it doesn't just go from day to night. It actually changes throughout the day. So you'll actually see the sun changing throughout the day. You'll be typing and suddenly in the background, you'll just notice that the mountain or the Catalina, the island itself is kind of glowing slightly different. It must be 4:00 or something, it's kind of neat.
Here's Gatekeeper's new look, and there's the always require software notarization local policy check. I don't think a problem. As long as people understand it, and I just think it gives you a speed bump for stuff that could be malware, and I think that's a good thing. So. I
just opened up Chrome this morning, not because I want to, but because my job requires me to sometimes, and got this pop-up about Google software update dot app or something like that, and didn't know that it existed on my Mac at all. And I'm trying to like suss out, do I need this? Can I just delete it? Because I'd rather just delete it if I can. If I need it for Chrome to work, then I'll put it on there. But that's an example of stuff that's happening on my Mac that I didn't even know was happening on my Mac. Yeah. So it's kind of neat to be exposed to this stuff. And there's plenty of stuff that it'll pop up and say, do you still want to allow, Dropbox to have access to X, Y? Well, yes, I do. And I want that. But there's other times where I think, wait, I didn't even know that was doing that. I'd rather not have that. If I can take that away, I would like to take that away, even if it means deleting an app. In some circumstances, if it's an app that I'm not really using, I'll delete it if I think they're running something in the background that I didn't know they were running in the background. I don't even want it. I'll just get rid of it.
When you open System Preferences, you might be bewildered at first because they've rearranged it yet again. They put Apple ID and family sharing up at the top. This is Andrew Cunningham's image from his Ars Technica review. But you'll find it. It's still there. They're just going to mess with you.
It's just more noticeable. That's all.
Actually, that's a good place to put it. It's a little more like iOS, I think, is kind of the idea. And I expect we're going to
I'm seeing that theme across a lot of the system changes that Apple has made, that they're getting us more. It's not iOS on your Mac. It's not macOS on your iPhone or iPad. It's just a more cohesive across the board interface change, which I think I do appreciate, because we do become sort of comfortable with a certain operating system, and then we have to switch over to something different. It's jarring, and sometimes it slows our workflow. So the more they do this, the more I will find myself easily navigating the different operating systems, just knowing automatically where to go to find something like Apple ID, for example. On my iPhone, I'm always going to Apple ID, but on my Mac, I don't do that as much. So now I have to think, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Well, now it's right there at the top of System Preferences. So they're easier to kind of like across the board,
Yeah, kind of more makes sense. Apple's right to assume that people who use Macs probably are using iOS in some form or fashion, or iPad OS in some form or fashion. If you use parental controls on your Mac, you may want to hesitate before going to Catalina, because that's been replaced with screen time. And as Andrew points out, some of the things he says, before you upgrade any Mac where you depend on managed local accounts, make sure screen time can do what you need it to do. It isn't a one-for-one, compatibility. So there are new things. So there are many new things you may want to do in screen time, but you probably should check to make sure it can give you the stuff you want. Screen time everywhere.
All the screen times.
All the screen times. I think this is actually great.
And
if you've used screen time on iOS, it's the same. The Mac version's pretty much the same.
Well, but it doesn't let you cheat anymore. Before, you could go to your Mac and get away with all sorts of bad behavior. Now it's tracking you there too.
Exactly. Actually, our kid goes to his phone because his phone has its own connection to the internet. So when we shut off the Wi-Fi, it's go right to the phone. Voice control. There's more accessibility with voice. In fact, you can actually use voice. So if you double tap the function key to speak, you'll also be able to double tap the function key to control your Mac. That is really cool for people with differing abilities. I think the idea that you could say, open Safari is fantastic.
It's like all power words. It's amazing. It doesn't do everything I want yet. Like a lot of the stuff I think should work doesn't yet. So I still say show numbers more often than I'd like, but it's gotten better and better over the beta. And I'm hoping it gets to like real Blade Runner level soon.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing. It's inaccessibility, but honestly, I think a lot of us will use it just because it's a fast way to do stuff.
Particularly with shortcuts,
Yeah. So you might want to go into the voice control in the accessibility section and take a look at some of the things you can do. This is brand new, and that's a big...
And just enable it once, because then it'll download, and then you'll have it available anytime.
Ah, important.
It's like dictation. You've got to download the verbosity before it'll work.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Let's see. Sidecar. How can we forget Sidecar? So Duet.
That's much on my mind.
Duet has been Sherlocked, sort of.
A little. Duet does more still, yeah.
Yeah. But honestly,
and it's also multi-platform now.
This is mostly what people. Yeah, I use Duet on Windows, but this is mostly what people are going to want, which is Sidecar, which lets you take your. Lisa can't wait for this because she has to have multiple monitors. You should see the size of her monitor in her office over here. It's 38 inches. It's like
mission control, right?
It's mission control because she does a lot of business stuff. She has side-by-side spreadsheets. She really uses it. And the problem is when she's on the road and she's got her MacBook or her MacBook Air, I guess she's 13 inches now, it's not enough space. So I told her, bring your iPad, use Sidecar.
What convinced me is Final Cut, because Lori and I have a bunch of meetings and I'm still trying to edit my videos because videos don't care that I have meetings. And before I'd be like swapping back. What did they say? Were they holding something up? I got to go back and it was never great. And now I just have Slack and Twitter and Google Meet all on the Sidecar, and I can keep the editing window on my MacBook Pro, and my life is so much better and more serene and happy.
I feel like,
and you can also have 3 windows set up too. I've done that with my MacBook Pro, a display, and then my iPad. All 3 of them, all set up, covering 3 different things. So yeah, you can really have fun with it.
Wow! Is there a limit to how many displays you can have?
I only have 3.
All right,
3 to try it with.
Somebody who has a bunch of iPads, I want to know. Can you build a?
See how many?
No, I think you can only one Sidecar, but you can have the external monitors plus Sidecar.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know how many external monitors can you piggyback off each other, because I know that you can have like 2. LG displays piggybacking off each other using, a Thunderbolt 3 display, for example. So you can have your MacBook Pro, the 2 screens, and presumably then Sidecar. So that's 4 right there. So how many more can you go? Like, I don't know.
But the cool thing is that you can't carry, I have the LG, the new LG 5K, and I can't carry that with me when I travel. And also I can't just pick it up off the desk and walk over to the sofa and plop down while pretending I'm still on my Mac. And that's the awesome part about Sidecar, is I could carry you and Andy and Leo with me now and just sit down on the sofa and pretend I'm still doing MacBreak.
It will work over cable, but it'll also work over Wi-Fi, which is really nice. It's using the HEVC encoding, so it's actually
on the silicon.
What's weird is it's actually streaming video of your desktop to the iPad. That's why it requires hardware support for HEVC encoding. Your T2 chip will handle that. On newer Macs. Intel has a quick sync codec which will work with Skylake or later. So if you have to have a pretty recent Mac, 2015.
Sidecar, Leo.
Oh, look at that. So cool. No wires. No wires.
Okay.
And actually, HEVC is a really good idea because it is so highly compressed. It really helps on low latency or high latency connections, so it's going to really make a big difference.
And if you have the A chip in your iPad and you have the T2 chip in your Mac, it's doing all the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
So it's much faster and much better.
Really.
I'm leaving you on there because it looks so good.
Yeah, cool. And it's it probably uses a little of your battery life. It uses a little of your processor. It's doing some work, but what I just think that, and it's. I mean, Duet can be a little finicky, a little tricky. Everybody's got it. And if you have a late model Mac, late model iPad, it works just very beautifully. It even works with
it just doesn't really support multi-touch. Like, it can do some multi-touch gestures and the pencil works, but you can't just suddenly have a touchscreen Mac,
right?
Which I think is what some people like Duet and the other one.
Have you tried so you use the pencil on the iPad when it's the second screen and it can see it on the Mac? How does that work?
It works like a mouse.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It's a little awkward.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Yeah. It's okay.
I've always wanted to stab people on my iPad with a pencil.
I haven't tried it because I don't have a single Mac that can use it, unfortunately.
Yeah, you have to have a pretty late model Mac to do this.
I think it's 2015 or later.
Some of the 2015s
no,
you have to have Skylake or later.
2016.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It's on Intel, so.
Yeah.
I've got the cutoff right there. Mine's a 2016, so I just barely got in under the wire. I don't even have the T2 chip.
Yeah.
Skylake does the 8-bit HEVC, I believe.
Still, I'd rather have my keyboard than that HEVC on the silicon.
There's almost no latency too, which is nice. Like I'm not using it with any wire, and it's still very responsive.
Pretty impressive. Yeah. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a big difference between when I've seen it work on friends' computers. I have not used it on any of mine. But the difference is that although I have Duet and I love Duet, I wouldn't really use it for like Photoshop. I wouldn't use it for anything that's really interactive. I tend to use it as a second display for Twitter, something I'm just going to sort of pay attention to, or a page of PDF reference or web reference. The great thing that when I was trying it out in the beta, it really did feel as though an external display had been hooked up, as opposed to, okay, but remember, we're not going to try to edit video on this because that's not going to work out very well.
I do like it that I can now use Find My on a Mac. If you've got a laptop, that'll be very handy, I think. Desktop.
I haven't even opened Find My yet. There's so many new things in Catalina.
And it shows you the battery life of your devices so that if they're low, you can run and go plug them in.
Yeah, or you could play a sound on your Mac. I don't know why you'd. Yeah. I guess it's when you install Catalina. Of course, it asks you, do you want to turn on Find My? I turn it on my iMac Pro, but on the other, if you have a laptop, that actually makes a little bit more sense, right? Because laptops
somebody might steal my Mac.
Yeah, well, I turn it on. Believe me.
I would like to have it on because you can't turn it on. I don't think you can turn it on remotely. Can you?
No, it says play sound. You can get directions to it. You can get notifications when found. You can mark it as lost, and you can erase it, which is kind of neat, too. So this is my iMac at home, and I could erase it from here. How scary is that? Let's not do that. Let's not do that, shall we?
Time to turn on two-factor authentication for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else?
It uses that new Find My network where you're distributed, all the different iOS devices are distributed and try to find it for you and report back where it is. It's pretty cool.
Reminders has been updated on the... I wonder if this is a Catalyst version of Reminders. The Mac Reminders has been updated and now does some...
Don't believe so.
Smart stuff. It got a big redesign, including, apparently, the ability to collate in a smart list reminders from other lists based on, whether they're due now or what their priority is. So... For to-do, this kind of is a good thing for to-do lists. You could say, what do I have to do now? What do I have to do today? And it can get it from all the other lists, which is cool. Yeah.
If things and OmniFocus are still too much to do, then this is really good for you.
I like for my iPad and iPhone the location-based reminders a lot.
Yeah, those are great.
I crashed very first thing I did is crash photos repeatedly.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was trying to share a large video to my mom, and it just crashed every single time. But the photos has been redesigned. They've got new sorting options and so forth. Moments is gone. Collections are gone. They just make it months and days. It's the iOSification, frankly, of photos.
Yeah, and it's got the navigation that I don't like from music and TV too. But it's using this thing. It was like the most popular word at WWDC this year, which is saliency, which is like their fancy word for relevancy. So it takes all the photos and tries to identify figures and faces and important things, and then make that into the thumbnail, not just the center of the picture where you might see a shrub, and then 8 different thumbnails of the same shrub and people moving around where you can't see them. And then it'll make the videos and the live photos move, and it'll try to it'll put everything on a grid, but the more interesting pictures will be bigger, and it'll hide screenshots and hide receipts and hide duplicates, just to try to make the visual presentation much more enjoyable for you.
But at the same time, it's also hiding those from you. So you have to remember, if you're looking for a specific picture or screenshot or, PDF of a receipt, you might have to dig in a little. I remember when it first came out, I was looking for pictures going like, I know I took that picture. Where did that go? I forgot that I needed to
worthy.
Kind of just, yeah, it wasn't worthy. So I had to go into the album, I think it was, to find
all photos,
the all pictures, the all photos to find it. So it's a beautiful presentation, but if you're in a hurry to try to find a picture, you might lose out on that aspect of just finding something quickly because you have to click into a couple of different albums to get to it. Not slagging on it though, because I really do like the way it looks.
You may never
Got rid of
notice
all my
this,
Pokemon screenshots.
but
It's amazing.
I can, there have been apps where you've had to install K extensions to modify the kernel. Always makes me nervous when an app asks me to do that. Those are the apps that you have to reboot before you can use them. That's gone. We now have a new DriverKit and System Extensions. I think a big improvement over the old K extension, which honestly I think was a security problem. And
because they could rewrite the rules, and once you rewrite the rules, there are no rules.
So these DriverKit is a little bit more sandboxed. It's designed you could crash a DriverKit, but it won't crash the system. There's security policies that apply to system extensions. They do not have unprotected access to the kernel, your hardware. So all of this is a big improvement, but it is a new model. Probably nothing most of us will ever have to worry about or think about, but it's a good thing to know that they've done this. And I think this is the kind of under the hood security improvement that can make a huge difference, not just security but in reliability on your system. So
they're taking everything out of kernel space, putting it all in user space, and that includes like VPNs and antivirus and all the stuff that used to just be meddling around there. For good or for ill.
I honestly, if I'm going to say the biggest change in Catalina is the new security model is really well done. They've really thought about this. However, might be bad news for Hackintoshers. I don't know if I don't know what that's going to mean, but these guys are so good at hacking around stuff.
Yeah.
How about APFS? This is something that Apple has kind of been using and snuck in, but there's so many features of the new Apple Fire system that I don't see. For instance, I for quite a while have expected that they'd replace Time Machine's hard links with snapshots. APFS does snapshots, which is a much better way of doing it. Have they? Are they? Do they plan to? Do you know, Renee?
It's in my preview, and I wrote about it, but for the life of me, I can't. They did enable 2 or 3 new new APFS features, and I think snapshotting was one of them. And I'm just going to double check.
You gotta move
APFS
slow.
has also added snapshotting, so if something goes wrong after an so they've enabled snapshotting, but for system recovery. So if you do an update, it'll snapshot, and if anything goes wrong with the update, it'll roll back to before that snapshot.
Good. That's an improvement.
Yeah.
I understand why you move slow on this stuff. When you're modifying the file system, you're modifying the guts of a system. And when they introduced APFS, there were all sorts of issues. Now, if you format a drive, an external drive, it'll format APFS, right? Now everything's formatting APFS. Is that right? For a while, you couldn't.
I'm not sure if old platters, external platters are yet. I'll have to double check that. But almost everything else, I think, is. It's one of those things where, like the 32-bit thing, and HPF and APFS and Swift, and eventually SwiftUI and Catalyst are all multi-year architectural changes. It's not like Apple saying Classic OS is over. Here's OS 10. We're going to spend a few years getting that right. We're all going to switch to it. It's like this thing they're replacing parts of the plane while we're still flying. And once in a while that goes badly, like Discovery D, and you've got to roll it back. And other times it just takes a few years to roll out. So there's a lot of changes here that I don't think we'll see complete. Like things certainly like SwiftUI, we certainly won't see the repercussions of that for a year or two. But I do like that they're still pushing hard and keeping, even with things like Catalyst, keeping the Mac relevant and part of what is the future discussions of their architecture.
So one of the things you won't notice, but it's under the hood, that's a big deal, is that APFS is now creating a volume for system files, which gives them additional protection. That's a really interesting and important move. I'm going to guess that's related to the file permissions you have to give programs when they want to access folders.
They can't. So like they basically at generation, there's a read-only partition created, a read-only volume created, and they created something called paired volumes, where you have the read-only and the read, and they created firm links, which aren't hard links and they aren't soft links, but the way they describe them is like warp conduits between directory structures, so that as a user, you really shouldn't see any difference, but you will move between read-only and not read-only. And the read-only part is, again, hardening the operating system, because there are certain parts of the computer that if something gets into, it can hide itself and again, rewrite the rules. So they're doing everything they can to sort of lock down what is the core operating and kernel space of the system, and then leave separate the user land space.
One of the if there are problems with Catalina, one of the widespread problems seems to be freezes on installation on various screens. And I'm guessing that the freezes on the early screens are the fact that APFS is doing this. It's really changing your file structure under the hood in a very dramatic way. So, I'm seeing a lot of reports on Reddit and other places of people stuck at various screens.
Mine was stuck on updating your Mac settings.
Exactly.
But I turned off my Mac and turned it back on again, and it was fine. The whole thing loaded fine.
Okay, so that's what people are doing. If it's stuck for hours, you have to. I noticed I got stuck on the informational screen about screen time or something, and I was really like, I'm not going to touch this. And eventually it continued on. There was a continue button, but it wasn't enabled for a long time. And I thought, well, this doesn't seem right. So there's I guess this is a word of warning to everybody. There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood here.
Yeah, this is definitely one where you should not do this upgrade until it's the weekend or some day where you have a full day or 2 days where you don't have anything you need this machine to do for you. And also, it's always good advice to back up your system beforehand, but it's doubly important this time. But it's chiefly because it will. If you have the weekend off, it will give you sort of the courage to say, okay, I know this seems to have frozen up right now, but I'm not going to fear the worst. I'm simply going to walk away, get some waffles, have some fun, enjoy the fall foliage in New England before I come back and decide that it's frozen. And if it has frozen, if it really has been all night and no progress has been made, if you have that backup, you know that the worst thing that can happen is that you have to start the upgrade all over again. Yeah. So this is, and again, this is there's this advice where you say, now always leave at least 3 hours before your flight for the airport that everybody ignores. But this is not one of those things that you can ignore this time. You really absolutely have to back up your system beforehand.
Always. Yeah. That's the one thing that I can't stress enough when I'm suggesting to people things that they can do to fix something wrong with their computer is you absolutely should have at least a local backup just in case something goes wrong. You can go back. It's your safety net for if something goes wrong with your computer. So definitely, no matter what, if you're listening at all, tell your family, tell your friends, at least back it up locally one time before you make any changes to your computer. Even if you don't want to have a backup system in place, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. I'm just going to say everybody should always be backing up. But even if you just want to make one big change to your computer, back it up first, plug in that hard drive, set up a time machine, do a quick backup, then make these big changes to your computer just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, should we point out that I just did a search on Amazon, and a 500 gigabyte USB 3 hard drive will set you back from $50 to $90. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah. It is such an easy thing to say. I'm not going to worry about using this for any other stores. This is just going to be a safe place just to back up my files. When I'm not backing it up, I will unplug it and put it in a drawer, and then remember to back up the next time. It's so easy now.
So you can, if you want to see this in action, if you open the disk utility, you can see that there are now two volumes. There's a read-only systems a volume, and then there's what is basically your data volume. You'll also notice, if you're a person like me who has a habit of going into the system folder, bad idea, but I like to look through it. You won't see much in your system folder anymore because it's not really your system folder. It's just a data folder named system. And I think that's where the relocated items were things that used to live in a system folder but can't live in the new read-only APFS volume, would be my guess. Lots of little changes under the hood, but I think we've got pretty much the big thing. Anybody played Arcade yet?
Not on my Mac. Yeah, I haven't. I played it on everything but on Mac.
Yeah.
I've never been a PC gamer.
Yeah, I like the Apple TV version. That's if you want the lean back, that's the way to do it with a controller.
Yeah.
Let's see. Activation lock for T2 Macs. So I suspected this was in the works. Apple added to its Macs these new T2 coprocessors. They did the touch bar, but they also do a lot of other things. I mentioned HEVC encoding. They do encryption. They have a secure enclave. And now, basically, they also have activation lock, which means if somebody steals your Mac, they're going to need your iCloud password to get in there and install another operating system or do anything with it. So that is really a big deal. That's the activation lock that made the iPhone not particularly desirable to be stolen. It worked very well, and now Macs are that way as well. You have to disable. You basically have to disable Find My Mac using your password before you can give your Mac to somebody else. I guess something important to be aware of.
Yeah.
You can. Oh, this is really nice. You can continue to unlock with the Apple Watch, but now you can unlock apps as well. So notice this setting: use your Apple Watch to unlock apps and your Mac. I've been loving it as more and more apps allow me to use the fingerprint reader on my MacBook Air to unlock, or settings lets you do that. But now you can. Now your watch will automatically unlock system preferences if you want. Oh, that is nice. That is nice, right? So it pops this up on your watch.
For anyone who doesn't have a Mac with a touch bar or the Touch ID, I have a MacBook Pro with a Touch ID, and I love it. Yeah. So I've gotten used to and got so comfortable with using my fingerprint on my MacBook Pro that I get kind of almost mad when I'm on my iMac and I can't do that. Like, I got to type it in like an animal. And being able to use Apple Watch for that sort of same idea of like, I just double click and I'm in. Yay. I don't have to remember any passwords.
So you'll get a little pop-up on your watch. You double tap it, and it'll unlock, the app or the system preference pane or whatever it is. Still no biometric authentication options for Mac desktops.
Nope.
Be nice to have Face ID, but
Yep.
He's starting to sound like Jim Dalrymple.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah.
But I mean, it's been like a long time, and the desktop Macs still don't have Touch ID.
Yeah. They got the T2 chip. There. My iMac Pro has a T2 chip.
I know.
Why doesn't it?
MacBook Air got it last year, but it came out with the iPhone 5S. So.
Yeah. Printer drivers may be going away. AirPrint protocol is apparently going to take over, which means you can't use those CUPS printers drivers anymore. You will be able to use AirPrint, though, and I think anything that gets rid of print drivers is a good thing. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Lots of nice changes. Oh, here's another one. Z Shell is now the default shell. Everybody who uses the terminal is probably used to Bash, which was the default shell for a long time. It is out of date. A lot of people prefer Z Shell. I use another shell, a little more modern, called Fish. The default shell, it's easy to change your shell if you're a terminal user, but the default shell now is Z Shell. And it'd be worth downloading Oh My Z Shell and customizing the hell out of it, because it is a great shell. The completions alone make it a big improvement. This is kind of keeping up with computer science a little bit, your terminal. They've also, I think they've taken out, what are they doing with Perl, Ruby, and Python? Have they taken them
you got to
out?
go get them.
You have to download them. But that's good because they had old versions.
Yeah.
So anybody who was using them would download new ones anyway. Brew still works. Homebrew still works, but you have to make some changes. You want to look on the Brew website, the Homebrew website, to make sure you update your Brew. And then, of course, that's the easiest way to get Perl, Python, and Ruby installed on your Mac, an up-to-date version. What is your recommendation, panel? Should everybody go Catalina? Should you wait? Who should wait? Renee, what do you think?
This last year when they took that time out to work a lot on just reliability and performance, it was a super easy upgrade because, everything was really solid throughout the betas. This year, the betas haven't been solid. There's been different release dates for every one of the operating systems. iOS has already got 3, I think, maybe 4. patches. It feels to me like Catalina's coming in really hot, which just means that, they were up until the last minute getting that thing across the finish line. So if you don't have to upgrade, and I don't think very many people have to upgrade, I would wait. It's that theory about Rev A boards. Like, let people like me, let people like Leo and Lori and Andy hit all of the bumps first, tell you about them, and make sure, all your apps are updated, apps that aren't being updated, you have all those things. Just wait. Wait for, what was the Alex Lindsay thing? Don't wait for the 0.1, wait for the 0.2.
Yeah.
I think you'd be well served.
Actually, if you're a homebrew user, you casks now are deprecated, and so you might want to go to the homebrew community and read about some of the issues, because there are some things that won't work in your homebrew or won't be updated. In fact, you'll get a warning from Brew if you upgrade. So that's something to be aware of. I use Homebrew extensively on my system. It's a great way to. It's a great package manager. Great way to install stuff. All right, let me take a break, and we have other. That's Catalina in a nutshell-ish, in a 8,000-word nutshell. If you want to know more, Ars Technica's traditional lengthy review by Andrew Cunningham is up and very good, and that's actually was the backbone of our conversation today. I used all of his illustrations. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. Very nice. Very nice. It is, I think, a big change. Oh, and I should link to, and thank you, Scooter X, for reminding me, Jason Snell also has a nice review on sixcolors.com, and his advice is proceed with caution. And I think that's fair advice. This is it's not that it's breaking things. It's just, there's some significant changes. Drag thing, as you mentioned, it ain't going to update that sucker. And so you're going to lose 32-bit apps. There's new security model that may impact some of your software and so forth. So you may look at the new features and say, I want dark mode, but you should also perhaps be prudent, because there may be issues with some of the things you love. It's worth doing the research. And yeah, as Renee said, listen to us, because we'll be bitching and moaning.
And the Mojave dark mode is pretty good. Like, I find it a little bit somber, but it's pretty good. You'll be fine.
Do you think Catalina is better?
The transition, like you said, is smoother. I like it because I find dark mode oppressive during the day. It sort of saps a little bit of energy out of me. I like it at night because it's not so glary. So I like that the transition is nice and smooth.
Yeah. That's right. You can get dark mode in Mojave. I forgot that. The other thing that's good is that dark mode's been around now long enough that almost everything supports it well. To get that. I always hate opening an app and it's blindingly bright.
Yes.
I hate that.
You feel like a vampire for about 10 seconds.
It burns. It burns. Our show today brought to you by Capterra. If you're in business, you use software. Who doesn't? I mean, every business uses software. In fact, that's Capterra's kind of mission statement. Capterra believes software makes the world a better place because software can help every organization become a more efficient, effective version of itself. Unless the software you're using was written in 1999 and requires Windows XP, then it's not so good. Or Internet Explorer 5, then it's not so good. But here's the good news. There's great modern software for every business, for every category, and you'll find it all at Capterra. Capterra is a directory, a resource that helps you find the best software solution for your business. 700 categories, everything from digital workplace software, video management software, to even line of business software like dog grooming business or yoga studio. Go there, search for what you need. Almost any category, you're going to find dozens of programs. That's the amazing thing. And then Capterra gives you the information you need to pick the right program. You can compare them side by side. You can narrow it down by the features it has. And the nice thing is these features are different depending on everything you're looking at. So it really helps you get the features you've got to have to keep your business flowing. Get that comparison chart together, look at what you've got, but then the best part of Capterra kicks in, and that's the reviews. More than 1 million up-to-date reviews by verified users. You're not using this software in the dark. You're seeing what other people have. 1,025,000 verified user reviews, and there's 1,000 new reviews every single day. Because, I'll tell you why. I know why. Because the people who find stuff on Capterra are so glad, and they want to pay it forward They find those reviews so useful. They leave a review. They say, yeah, wow, you should know. This is great or this is terrible. So no matter what kind of software your business needs, Capterra makes it easy to discover the solution that's perfect for you easily and, I left out the best part, for free. Capterra is completely free. Not freemium, not pay us later. Free. Join the millions of people who use Capterra every month to find the right tools for their business. And if there's one thing you want to do to pay for it, leave a review. Help the next person. Capterra.com/MacBreak. Now, I know you're smart. You could go to Capterra.com and get the exact same thing. But if you do use Capterra.com/MacBreak, they'll say, those MacBreak people really use the Capterra. They like that. So let's keep buying ads there. That's how it works. Capterra.com/MacBreak. Capterra is software selection simplified. It's the good stuff. I love it that it's free. So Apple was getting a lot of heat through the week for blocking a app at the request of the Chinese government, an app that's used by protesters in Hong Kong to stay safe. To their credit, after the hue and cry, they put it back.
Yeah.
Did they say anything about that? Or they just did it?
I don't think they commented.
They just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that people have been... Go ahead.
Apologies. Are you sure that it was at the behest of the government, or was it the information that I had read didn't mention that the government asked them to do it, but that they were just citing that it was against their policies, and then after third review,
China didn't tell the NBA that the Houston Rockets general manager tweet in support of the Hong Kong protesters.
The developer wrote about it, and they made it sound like Apple interpreted it as an app that lets you avoid police, which was not compatible with the App Store. But then they explained that that's legal in Hong Kong, and you can even put up flags saying this is a police area if you want to avoid it. And then Apple's, and I guess with all the other discussion going on, said, "Oh, okay, good." And with the App Store, the frustrating and amazing thing is that it lands on the desk of a single reviewer who makes a judgment call, often without greater context, and then it gets upvoted to Phil Schiller fairly quickly.
And I'm sure it wasn't the Chinese government that didn't like that Taiwanese app and the Hong Kong keyboard on iOS, and so that had nothing to do with the Chinese government's feelings about Taiwan.
Well, that might have, but they might not all.
Right, but that's a different thing.
Look,
and
let's
also
put it this way: China doesn't have to say anything, right? Apple knows what's problematic.
I only bring it up specifically because, in the way this is presented to us, the information that we have, this doesn't actually sound like it was possibly a political move. It sounds like it was just maybe like an accident, like oops, we thought this was illegal, but it's not.
They did put it right back.
Yeah. The argument that they made in the meantime was that it wasn't necessarily to organize protesters to go to places of police activity or to avoid getting arrested. It was for people who just need to get from point A to point B, who don't want to be caught up in a really, really violent, not necessarily violent, but very, very chaotic circumstance. So it was questioned. I agree with Renee. I do think that it was just whoever it was who was at the pass fail switch that day erred on the side of fail, and then when a more thoughtful review went over, they decided to queue it along. Although you are definitely right when it comes to a Taiwanese flag disappearing from an emoji list. That isn't because that someone thought that this was the best thing for the users. It isn't even necessarily because China specifically raised their eyebrow and raised their hand. It is because it's a third rail sort of thing, and there are a lot of people, there are a lot of companies out there that just they work for China. They work for the party.
I thought it happened a while ago. Like I thought there were reports of it disappearing.
That was a while ago.
It disappeared in China. What's changed now? It is now disappearing in Hong Kong as well.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think it's a mistake to cave to authoritarian regimes because you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And
yes, they will just keep eating.
They just say, hey, it works to complain to the NBA. let's make sure that not only can nobody in China say anything against China or approve of the Hong Kong protests, but nobody in the rest of the world can say, right on, Hong Kong protesters, fight for freedom. It's the right thing to do. Now we're going to get banned in China.
And not related, but not unrelated, the EU ruling about how you have to handle speech internationally is likewise troublesome.
Yeah, I just really...
This is just why I don't really like the argument that, oh, well, Apple has to obey whatever the local laws are of the places where they're operating the store or where they're trying to sell iPhones. That is true, but you have a responsibility if you are an ethical company to be aware that if all the news we're getting is that they're caved on this, they caved on that, they caved on this, they're caving on that again, that you have to make it very, very clear that there's a line that you're not willing to cross, that there is a point at which you're willing to say, hey, if you're going to force us to, for instance, put an app into the App Store, approve an app for the App Store that we are using to track down and continue to harass and imprison Muslim Chinese, guess what? If you're saying that we can't operate the App Store without it, guess what? We're not operating the App Store anymore. I don't know where that line is with Apple, and that kind of concerns me right now.
Just makes me sad.
It's definitely a hard topic. I don't think that there's ever been such a globalized world as what we have right now, and it's difficult from our perspective to exactly, see, it's really even hard to like gather my thoughts enough to say what I'm thinking, which is
I don't think Chinese free speech standards should apply in the United States, period.
But yeah, and let me start by saying I'm 100% in agreement here, but I also like be the differing voice to say I can't even. It's so complicated. But when you're working inside of another country, the other country has laws, and so you do have to adhere to their laws or leave that country, and that is exactly what Apple is in this weird in between of is in the U.S. they're talking about all the their freedoms and diversity and acceptance, but then in another country they're completely they're not adhering to those same standards in a different country. So what does that mean? How does that work? Should they be selling out, if you let me use such a punk rock phrase, to continue to work or to continue to sell products in China?
They should, because Apple exists because of the freedoms we have here in the United States. There would be no Apple. There is no Apple in China. And if you want, you gotta say we are born here. We're of the United States, and the freedom of speech is important to us. And the NBA should be saying that, and everybody else should be saying that. And there's
also a difference between respecting their laws in China and respecting
You're in the
them outside
American
China.
country.
Yes. Yeah.
The American company.
Yes, which is why I said the EU thing is. Which is why I said the EU thing is problematic too, because they want to start forcing, any country to be bound by the free speech rules of one country.
That's right.
Like Belgium could say that we can no longer say something.
That's what's going to happen, and that's not right. If you want to be the beacon of freedom, be the freaking beacon.
Yeah. I do have to say that just for balance, that human rights organizations do tend to say that an organization like Google, like Apple, like Facebook, like any of these other large communications platforms, they can do more good by at least making available resources to citizens of a country like China, or name the country, than they would necessarily by pulling out all of their products and services based on a certain program or a certain policy that's been put into place. That doesn't mean that they're saying that every single that Apple or Google should always retain their relationships with countries no matter what. But nonetheless, that is something that I do have to grudgingly sort of remind myself of, that there is the case to be made that if you take out if you pull out completely, then none of the good things that you can deliver to people that will allow them to breathe a little bit more freely, that will have a little bit more power as individuals and as groups, you're going to remove that as well as everything else. Although, again, my big concern for this conversation is, again, I don't know for sure where that line is. I don't know what the line is that Apple won't cross, and I don't know if
versus appeasement.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
We know how appeasement works. We know how well that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad Apple got its exemptions from tariffs. I'm glad that there's so much travel going to DC and so many dinners with the White House. I just hope that whatever they accomplish with that, it's worth it for everybody, not just for Apple.
Let's take a break. I know we got to get Renee out of here in about 5 minutes, so let us...
Yes, sir. Apologies.
No, that's fine. Let us talk about our fine sponsor, LastPass, and then we'll get our picks of the week coming up. LastPass. We were just out in Boston for LastPass. Andy came by. Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, that was a really great event, packed with people, and a really great, hour and a half long conversation just about how bogus passwords are and how important it is to replace with something else. And it's
fantastic.
It was really, really great.
LastPass's CIO was there. The CISO from LogMeIn, their parent company, was on stage with us, Jerry Buchelt, Steve Gibson. I was there, and, of course, Bill Cheswick, and it was so much fun. But you, Andy, got the best part, which is before the event, you were sitting backstage with us having lunch, and the conversation's pretty impressive when you get those big brains in there. It was so much fun. Yeah,
particularly because I was oh, no, we have to go. It was great.
We put it up on the specials feed. You can watch the event. I apologize for the camera and the audio. We didn't have control of that, but at least you get the content. And yes, the consensus was passwords are terrible, but they're not going anywhere. So you should use a tool that makes passwords better. LastPass is the answer. It's a great password vault, an award-winning security solution, especially for businesses. And LastPass is very sharp. They know that if there's something better than passwords, we got to use it. They were very interested in Steve's Squirrel. They're doing all sorts of interesting things to LastPass Enterprise. In fact, they recently said, we use this here, so I'm aware of this, set up an expanded business lineup with some amazing features that do something that normally is impossible. Both make you more secure and make it more convenient. Usually it's one or the other. Well, I'll give you an example. LastPass Enterprise now includes single sign-on. We talked about this a little bit at the event. SAML is a great technology that means instead of having to remember a password, you can authenticate with something you have, your smartphone. And SAML is so great. LastPass supports 1,200 plus SAML apps with more coming all the time. So it's a great way to log into your accounting or your database without having to use a password, but still being more secure. Partly because LastPass MFA is leveraging more than just a password. It's doing biometrics, face, fingerprint, even contextual factors, your location, your IP address. So it can really say, no, this is Leo. He's got his phone, and this is him. LastPass Identity is what they call it. It combines LastPass Enterprise, LastPass MFA, from single sign-on and password management to adaptive authentication. LastPass is using the cutting-edge technology to give you absolute control over your security, but also to make it easier for your users, all in one simple, secure solution. That, to me, is amazing. By the way, if you use LastPass, whether it's LastPass Premium, LastPass Families, LastPass Enterprise, do the security challenge, because that is a great feature of LastPass. I do it every few months. Goes through all your passwords, looks at their length, uniqueness, and strength. Not only do you get an overall score, you can see detailed results of all of your accounts. You'll know which passwords are putting you at risk, and they make it very easy to almost automatically, in many cases, automatically update those passwords. We use LastPass Enterprise at Twit. I use it at home. I'm a huge fan. You will be too. From authentication to access to passwords, LastPass manages every entry point to your business so you can mitigate risk while improving employee productivity. We love them. We thank them so much for bringing us to Boston. All the people at the event, I think, would agree it was a lot of fun. There was an open bar. There was food. There was no cost, no charge for tickets. And we're talking to LastPass about doing more of these in 2020. I love doing this. LastPass.com/twit to find out more. And as I said, send them a little signal. Hey, you saw it here. LastPass.com/twit. Renee Ritchie, you've got a minute and a half to give us your pick of the week.
So I know we talked about these before, but I feel like they got lost in all the hubbub surrounding new iPhones and everything else. But like usual, Apple announced their new fall Apple Watch Band collection. And this year there are some really nice two-tone sport loops, which, like I've said before, are the yoga pants of watch bands. They're just so comfortable. And they look so nice now because they're multiple colors. Yeah,
I want pomegranate. Ooh,
oh, and they're pinks and reds and blues and blacks. And they just look if you want to spend a lot of money, there's new printed Hermes bands, which look good. There's I get yelled at for not saying it in French.
Just
There's
call them
also the
Hervé
Nike with hot
Villachez
pink.
bands. Everybody will understand.
C'est Hermes. On peut parler français, c'est Hermes. But I say it in English when I speak English. It's a really weird thing. And there's some really nice Nike sport loops. So if you missed them because of all the iPhone hubbub, it's worth going back and taking a look.
Yellow leather. We've always said red leather, yellow leather, but I didn't know it existed. So there you have it. Look at that. Meyer lemon leather loop.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, look at the Hermes. Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. All right. Thank you, Renee, for spending my money.
You're welcome.
Have a great day. We appreciate it. Renee Ritchie, imore.com/vector, his great podcast. I have the link bracelet, the black link bracelet with titanium, by the way. I love these link bracelets.
So
these
good.
Are beautiful.
It's so good.
Oh,
yeah.
They're so expensive.
So good, though.
But they're so good. Thank you, Renee. Have a great day.
Thanks, Leo.
Andy Yanako, pick of the week. I know what your pick's going to be.
Yeah, really big pick of the week. A brand new version of BBEdit is out, and it is 13.0, so it's a 0.0 release. Woohoo! And it's long. It's been my favorite and a lot of other people's favorite text editors forever. It's often associated with editing code because it has a lot of customizations that help you out if you're writing code, but really is for anybody who has to generate a lot of text, manipulate a lot of text, convert a lot of text. It really is. It's like a lightsaber for anything that involves text. And with 13.0, they're always the best feature of this has been its support for grep for regular expressions.
That's what I use BBEdit for, almost 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Like anytime you've ever had to you've changed the name of a character in a book, or someone you're preparing like a 40, 50, 60 page report, and then suddenly the way that you need to call out the tables has changed. If you can do a simple search and replace in Word or Google Docs, that's great. Otherwise, you probably find yourself going, okay, I'm going to do a search just for each one of these. I have to manually with the regular expression tools in BBEdit, you could just simply spend maybe a minute or two creating the right sort of really hairy grep search and replace sort of transform sort of language, and then boom, it's done everywhere. And then you still have that saved so that if they have to change it again, boom, it's done. So that's always been one of the most powerful party tricks that BBEdit has had. They've added a couple of things that really make it more powerful and more accessible for everybody. One is what they're calling it pattern playgrounds, I guess maybe named after Swift playgrounds, where I have to admit I've been using grep for decades, but even so, I kind of have to make a copy of the thing that I want to search and replace, the thing that I want to modify, because I don't know if it's going to really work until I actually unleash it upon the world. So with grep playgrounds, it will basically let you sort of pretend and practice creating a grep transform, and you can actually see what's going to happen. You can see what will happen to your text when it happens. If you made a mistake, you can change the regular expression that you're creating and see immediately what that effect is going to be, and then you can say, okay, great, now actually lock and load and fire this at my system. The other thing they've added, which is long overdue, is what they're calling a grep cheat sheet, so that there's so many times where if, someone has used the wrong type of comma. They're using Oxford commas. They should be using some other kind of comma. And there's a standard grep for it, so I have to do like a Google search for what's the grep for changing this to that. Now they've basically created literally a cheat sheet. It's like a long list of like anytime that something has been repeated X number of times, I want you to find that. And then if you want to replace with something else, that's how you do that. How about anytime that there is a new line, anytime there's a nested sub pattern inside some code, all this sort of stuff. Now, instead of having to build it yourself, you can just pick it off of a list. And when you combine this with some of the other really great tools they have, now I have to say that Rich Siegel, who is one of the heads of Barebones Software and the legacy creator of BBEdit, really good friend of mine. We have breakfast almost every week. So let's get that out of the way, that I'm tainted perhaps if I'm supposed to be completely dispassionate. But yeah, he walked me through some of the changes and pointed out something that has been in BBEdit for a little while, but I didn't know about it. They had added a feature last year, I think, called canonize or canonical. So you can take all the transforms, all the changes, everything you need to do to conform a document to the way that it has to be for your organization, and just define that as here's the canonical way of doing something. So then whenever a contributor to your website or contributor to your book or whatever from the UK sends you a manuscript, and all the stuff you used to do saying, okay, let's change let's change color to color. Let's change the references to these people to these other people. The way he does punctuation. He also tends to put two line feeds after every paragraph like a maniac. We need to not have that happen anymore. All the stuff you do can then say, well, now I want you to canonize this file. And then as soon as you've done it once, it will remember all this sort of stuff in sequence and do it for you. So now it's just drag and drop. And now immediately all the sort of things you need to do to make sure that you can just drop this into a document, into a template. It will absolutely work. It really is the sort of thing where you download it works for free, all features for 30 days, after which all they do is they turn off some of the higher features of it, some of the higher functions of it, but you will still have the best text editor you can have on your Mac. So absolutely just download it. Go to barebones.com, download it. I think it's also available on the App Store. Download it, have it there, and it will be one of those things that turns 2 days of there's no possible way we can finish this in time to, we can actually spend 30 minutes building a solution, and then like 10 seconds having Barebones, having BBEdit solve it for us, and then again go out for waffles for a day and a half.
Well, as somebody who buys every upgrade, I'm glad to see that the upgrade for me will be $30. Well worth it if you. Yep. If you haven't bought it, buy it now, and then that way you'll get the upgrade. And it supports Rich. He works so hard on this stuff and does such a great job. And yeah, I mean, honestly, if you have a Mac, you ought to have BBEdit. I don't know. I'm really excited about the pattern playgrounds because I use grep. Yeah. This would be a great tool to learn grep. He uses a standard kind of grep that would work in most programming languages. It's hard to learn grep, but the pattern playground, kind of like a Swift playground, makes it easy to try things and see what happens. So.
Yeah, I use it a lot for. I use it a lot for like if I have like old like Microsoft Word documents that were formatted because it was the late '90s and I had no idea how to format anything. I will often like open it with the modern version of Word, export it as an XML, and then use grep in BBEdit to modify all that XML as it goes to turn it into something that I can now put into the next book without having to. So I can spend the next 2 days of my life writing new stuff as opposed to conforming something old so that it'll actually work in a new file or a new book format. It's great.
Nice pick. Lori, you're going to wrap it up for us here.
I'm wrapping up with a blanket. I'm trying to stick with a Halloween theme this year.
Oh, I like
or this
it.
month. So
no, might as do it all year. We like your scary movies.
I do love Halloween. I do love scary movies. But this time, it's a blanket.
Wait a minute, a Halloween blanket?
It looks like the VHS tape cover of Halloween. My significant other just got this for his birthday, so I think it's the cutest thing.
It's even dinged up in the corners, and it's got like abrasions. And that's great.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty adorable. So if you actually have someone in your life who likes VHS tapes, it doesn't even have to be a Halloween theme. If they like VHS tapes, they're going to love something like this because it's so clever to kind of just like mimic the exact replication of that VHS tape cover. On the inside, it's got this sort of soft fleece with these little like almost like bubbly looking thing. It's kind of a weird inside, but it feels really nice.
It looks soft.
My significant other won't use it because he's too manly for blankets, but I use it all the time. So.
Oh, you gave one of those birthday presents, eh?
It wasn't from me. It was from somebody else.
Okay.
But I use it all the time because I think it's pretty awesome.
It takes a manly man to use a Halloween blanket. I'm just saying. He's
just scared of the spooky Halloween cover, and he doesn't want to admit it.
By the way, this is from creepycompany.com. What a great site for Halloween stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that they have a lot of other funny blankets. They have
Garbage Pail Kid
Garbage Pail Kids. Yeah,
my God.
It's pretty cute. It's a clever site that does a lot of fun little things there. So the site in general is pretty great.
If you're not a Halloween fan, they also have the Evil Dead VHS box. blanket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You could
like,
collect them all.
Collect all of them. Oh my God.
like
The Garbage Pail
Halloween
Kids
tickets.
is actually a wrapper from Garbage Pail Kids bubble gum.
Wax, yeah.
OMG. That's hysterical. Wrap yourself in that.
Yeah.
That might be my costume.
Yeah.
I was thinking you can make a sport coat out of that. Just use the fabric.
What a great sport coat. I'm thinking if you got a Jason mask, get a hockey mask and this box, you could just be the box for Halloween and emerge slowly from it and scare the heck out of people. What? That's a great idea. Ah!
Except I think you would want a Shatner mask instead of the. I'm sorry that I'm being so nerdy about it, but the Halloween, that's the Jason
latest
mask is from Friday the 13th.
I'm so
Halloween.
sorry. And they did make it. It's a death mask or face mask of a life mask of William Shatner. I didn't know that till I read that.
No, it was actually a Halloween mask. It wasn't a face mask.
It was a Halloween.
It was
a commercially made,
a $2 mask that you could get from the local drugstore that they messed the image up so that it didn't actually look like Shatner anymore. So yeah,
that's how low budget this movie was. But one of the great scare movies of all time. Jamie Lee Curtis. Did you see the sequel? Was it terrible?
I have watched all of them, and the recent one that came out, I guess technically you would call it a sequel because they basically washed away all of the 10 other movies that they made.
Yes.
I thought it was good. It wasn't as good as the original, but that's kind of that moment in time that you can't replace. But considering how many bad movies they've made in the series, I think it was pretty darn good.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The hockey mask is somebody else entirely.
Yeah.
I apologize.
I know. I didn't mean to nerd out on you on that.
No, you're right. I just, I knew. I wasn't thinking. We have received word now from the electric company, I'm sad to say, Pacific Gas and Electric, that there will be no electric starting sometime after midnight tonight for an undefined period of time. As many of you know, we're in a high fire danger area. Of course, last year the fires were horrific. Many of my friends lost their homes. An entire town, Paradise, California, disappeared. We're in a similar high fire danger this year. They're expecting wildfires. And as a result, the electric company has decided to kill power in our region for an undetermined amount of time because of the high fire danger. This doesn't seem like it makes any sense, but it is going to happen. We are not on backup power here at TWIT. We don't have generators. So they are going to kill the power sometime after midnight. That means probably no shows tomorrow. We're not sure if it'll continue through Thursday. There's some evidence it might. But we will come back on as soon as power is back and we can judiciously power up all our devices. We're not sure how they'll feel after being left on for 3 years and then suddenly deprived of electricity. But we will gingerly power back up and we'll do all the shows we missed. Don't worry.
Hopefully it will depend on wind speed, which is worse at night. And not
so maybe it'll just be
bad.
overnight and come back in the morning.
The best case scenario is that they cut power at night and keep it on during the day. But
I can only imagine in my opinion, a lot of this is because PG&E is facing billions of dollars in lawsuits for last year's fires because they did not prune back trees, they did not protect their lines, and some people think, and there is some evidence, although I'm not sure if it's proof positive that the fires were started by PG&E power lines. And so I think this is their revenge, to be honest, for all the lawsuits. Oh, instead of cleaning up the lines and getting rid of the underbrush and, doing the right thing with maintenance, we're just going to turn off the power. See how you feel now. But I can't imagine that the electric company will want to leave the power off for too long. Too many hospitals, emergency facilities, and people rely on electricity. So we shall see how long this lasts. But they have sent us word now that they do plan to cut off the power at sometime after midnight tonight. So I'm just... at 4 a.m. they're going to cut it? Why 4 a.m.?
Okay, that doesn't make sense.
No one knows. That's just, maybe expect the wind to pick up. I don't know what's going on. So this is all over the state of California. It's not just us. Based on the latest weather readings, they'll turn off power in our service area as defined below. Power shutoff will be October 9 at 4 a.m. Restoration date to be announced. Medical baseline customers impacted. There's a few. You're gonna see this too, probably, Lori in Sacramento. Sacramento's good. So 1,951 medical facilities will be affected by this. No big deal. That's just Sonoma County alone.
If any of you want to come over and use my library conference room,
your library?
It is awesome. It's awesome. It really is.
We when we built the studios, I was actually asked, should we put in power generation facilities for such an occasion that would such a big generator at such great expense that it just doesn't make sense. We're not mission critical. So you can live without Twit for a couple of days. We'll be back as soon as PG&E says so. So I just wanted to pass along that word. I don't know if we'll be able to tweet or go into our community or anything like that, but to whatever degree we can make public pronouncements, we will. But just so you know, if you don't see us tomorrow, that's where we're on the beach. Enjoying snow day.
Can't we just periscope it from your house or something?
My house won't have power either. No. And I have to wonder,
Come to
the cell sites won't have power. We'll have to go to your house, Karsten. Karsten lives somewhere else. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for watching MacBreak Weekly. We really appreciate it. It'd be silly to get it. Well, we'd probably do it anyway. We do like sitting around and talking, but it's nicer when we know somebody's watching. Please tune in. We do the show 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern time every Tuesday. That's 1700 UTC. For now, anyway, twit.tv/live for the live audio or video streams. You can also subscribe and get the shows automatically delivered to your device. Just go to twit.tv/mbw for all the episodes. The subscription means you don't even have to do that. It just automatically appears on your device. We'd love it if you do that. You can also visit us in studio. Just email tickets@twit.tv. I guess we're going to have to email a few people tomorrow and say, we don't know how to unlock the door without electricity, so stay away. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Now get back to work, because break time is over.